From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, we are back, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is the original podcast about consumption. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about all kinds of crap, but lately it is the end of March, and we've been talking about crummy movies. And with me this week to continue talking about crummy movies and some other stuff is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast and the authority on Michigan craft beer. Sean, how are you doing today?
John, my boy, I'm great. Just got back throwing frisbees with razor blades in them. How you been doing?
Thank God for that.
Yeah, that's the only way to throw.
It is the only way to throw. I just took a shower in a tree that has running water in it somehow, so I'm doing pretty good.
Can't get any better than that.
No, you can't. What have you been up to this week?
Well, electronic computer-related rants aside, I have watched so much stuff. So much stuff. Do you want to hear about it?
I sure as hell do.
All right, so let's start off with the most recent stuff. Well, actually, I've watched a lot of stuff really recently. The Last of Us,
recently?
really recently, as in today.
Oh, okay.
Last of Us season finale, that was done, that finished up. I watched that. We'll talk about Last of Us somewhere down the road here, so I don't want to get too far into that. I finished The Real World season 4, which is London. That makes me really sad because I don't really like any of the other ones after that. That's the last one where they didn't have any kind of objective to do during the season, so they had their own jobs, they had their own lives, and they just happened to record in the house and outside of the house. The next season is season 5, obviously, comes after 4. That's the Miami.
Mean like a reality show where they have reality where people just live their lives and go to work and come home?
Yeah, like real reality. They have real reality.
Whoa.
Isn't that nuts? Isn't that
It's
crazy
trippy.
that they used to have reality shows that were actually about real things? But season 5 is Miami, and I have searched high and low, and while I'm not really interested in it, I wouldn't mind probably just revisiting it to see how much I don't like it. But the only place that I can find it is on YouTube.
Nostalgia Kate watching. I love it.
Yeah. The only place I can find it is on YouTube, and it looks really bad. And season after that, I think, was Boston, which is season 6. Anyways, I digress. You can't really find it anywhere after that, after season 4. Go ahead.
What year is season 5?
Season 5 is 1995.
Okay, so we're still well before. I didn't know if that was like around the time that, that area where TV started transitioning to HD and things looked kind of weird for a while there. Like,
oh,
everything
yeah,
was
like
shot in a
some,
different-
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's well before that, though, if it's 95.
Yeah, and what's really weird is watching season 4 in London, they have, I watch it on a SD TV, not an SD TV, geez, an HD TV, right, that has, full resolution, actually 4K, and it has, when they do the confessionals, sometimes they have the bars on the top and the bottom, so it's just this, like, postage stamp-sized video in the middle of the TV. It's really weird.
It's like you're watching through a mail slot?
Yeah, kind of. You're being a voyeur, I guess. So anyways, enough with that stuff. I've been watching Physical 100, which is on Netflix. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like a Korean.
Yeah, I've seen it. It pops up every time I open the app, but I haven't watched it. Sounds too physical for me.
We're watching it. My wife and I are watching it. We're only on episode 3, and I know this has been out for a little bit. So we've been watching that. That's kind of, you get to the point where you just fast forward it because they dub everybody and they do multiple angles, and they'll show the same scene multiple times from different angles. It's okay. It's more of a curiosity, kind of something to watch. Today, I didn't get to finish it, but I started watching, because we talked about The Perfect Weapon and Jeff Speakman's storied movie career as a esteemed actor. I realized that I have a copy of the movie Deadly Outbreak, which is also called, it goes by a different name too, like Deadly Takeover, I think is what it's called. And this movie, we should have talked about Deadly Outbreak or Deadly Takeover instead of The Perfect Weapon, because The Perfect Weapon is kind of like trying to be a serious movie, and Deadly Outbreak is absolutely the cheesiest action movie that you'd ever want to watch. So I kind of feel like we missed the boat on that.
I think we might have that covered for Crummy Movie March still. So we got this last episode for before the month is out. Yeah, anything else you've been catching up?
No, that's not enough for you? Catch up? Boobity bop. Nope, that's it.
I was watching The Last of Us as well before we started recording. I'm not as far ahead as you are, though, so that I got a feeling we'll probably come right out of March with that episode talking about The Last of Us, because truthfully, I don't I just want to talk about it that much. I'm that thrilled to talk about it that we're going to have to do an episode quickly.
It might be The Last of Us.
Very well could be. Speaking of other things, I'm not going to dwell on too much. You know, when we're recording, this is the week after that the new Scream movie came out. So I did rewatch Scream 5 this week just to kind of feel fresh going into it. And then went and saw Scream 6 in a theater, which it wasn't ruined. I didn't have some dickwad come in and say, is this Scream? While Ghostface was like carving up a person. So that's good. I'm not really going to say much about the movie. I'm sure somewhere down the road we'll talk about that more extensively, but I will say I enjoyed it. And if you like the other 5 movies in this franchise, there's no reason that you should hide from this one, if that makes any sense. On the Netflix front, I found time to sit down and watch Chris Rock's new special, Selective Outrage. And have you gotten a chance to watch that yet?
No,
I don't know if we talked about this or not.
We haven't talked about it. I've heard a lot about it. I mean, I do want to see it. I just haven't seen it yet.
Do you like Chris Rock in general?
I do. I think some of his specials have been hit or miss for me. Some have been really funny. I found them really funny, and some I just kind of, maybe they weren't for me, but yeah, I'm anxious to see what he says.
I usually like him, the comedian, more than his specials. Like his specials, it's interesting. Like they always have a different tone to every special. Like his old ones, he's just straight up angry Chris Rock and, you know, so on. Then he went through this like period where he did 2 or 3 where it was almost like mellowed out, but he was still kind of almost like enlightened Chris Rock. Now he's back to being pissed off, but there's something about his delivery on it that, I don't know, maybe it was just the mood I was in or something, but it was kind of weird to me, but oh no, it wasn't a bad spot. It's worth watching for sure, especially if you have any interest in him or whatever. The lowest part of it is probably when he talks about the Will Smith stuff, and that's just because I just don't fucking care. Like, it's been a year. You got punched. I don't care. You know, we all saw it.
You know, it's funny. We are exactly a year out from that because by the time we're recording, this is day after the Oscars. I don't know anything about who won any Oscar. I mean, I know that Everything Everywhere All at Once won some, but I don't know what it won. I heard that Brendan Fraser, did he win like Best Actor for The Whale?
He did. Jamie Lee Curtis won Best Supporting Actress for Halloween Ends. No. For
that'd be fitting, right?
Right. Everything All Over and what you were
at
saying.
one time.
Yeah, and then the other 2 like big awards other than Brendan Fraser were I don't know their names, so I'm going to sound horrible saying this, but the 2 Asian actor and actress that were up for, I guess one would be supporting and one would be a lead because Jamie won supporting.
All for that movie?
Fraser, I believe so.
Wow, Michelle Yeoh got an Oscar.
Yeah, her, and I don't remember the other guy's name now.
He was
he was also in Encino Man. So.
Was he the guy that plays Data, right? From Goonies? We should really look this stuff up. I mean, we
do.
These magic devices that whatever. Let's just move on. I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
I prefer fumbling through it like an idiot and possibly getting myself in trouble for not remembering someone's name out of a movie I haven't watched yet.
I don't even know who was up for. I knew Michelle Yeoh was up for an award, and I knew the movie was. And I heard about Brendan Fraser, and I think I had heard about Jamie Lee Curtis, but that's about the extent of it. So we don't talk about generally any kind of movie that would be on the line for an Oscar anyways. So let's just
fuck no.
We didn't. No, I see some of those movies, but it's not something that we generally talk about.
I rarely see those kinds of movies, and when I do, it's kind of like the one. It's like when Heath Ledger won an Oscar for The Dark Knight. Like, yeah, but did he win it because of the performance, which granted he's great in that movie, or did he win it because he died? You know, it is what it is. Well, let's see. So I talked about Scream. I talked about Chris Rock. I found a documentary on Tubi about Ren and Stimpy called Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy, the Ren and Stimpy story. I don't think this is very new, so you might have seen this before, but it just goes behind the scenes with the original creator of the show and some of the
debauchery.
Well, more so just around the creator of the show, which really happened more in the later years, or at least that's where they kind of touched on it. But is this something you already know about, or am I just kind of kicking the can?
No, I mean, you are kicking the can. I do know about John Kay and all his problems, and he just couldn't be on time, and he was blowing his money on, from what I remember hearing.
Oh, it's way worse than that.
Hookers and blow and all that kind of stuff.
Like 15-year-old hookers.
Right. Quality guy.
Yeah. I was kind of amazed that they got him in this documentary, even though they covered that part of his story. So usually,
he was actually in it. They interviewed him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like he's in it from start to finish. Like he's in it from like the start. This is how I got into cartoons, and then how we got found by Nickelodeon, and then here's the girl that accused me of. He didn't use the word abducting because that would be a crime. But, whatever she accused me of, beating around the bush.
This is
no
her.
pun intended.
Well, you know what they say, John. You know what they say?
He wasn't found guilty, so it's okay.
Well, I was going to go with, if brains were bird shit, you'd have a clean cage.
I don't know. I was never like Ren and Stimpy was always almost too weird for me. Like it kind of went over my head, but it was interesting to kind of see the weirdos that made it. And the creator is definitely king of the weirdos. And then John's Tubi recommendation of the week is a movie called Demon of Paradise, which we've talked about a couple times. I've also recommended it to people before I even watched it. I was recommending this movie. Recommendation paid off. The short premise of this movie, it's about a lizard demon dude who gets pissed off when people throw dynamite at him. Who knew? It's a very like campy, I want to say early 80s, like monster / whatever movie. But what makes it kind of stick out and great is this monster can be in the middle of like a lagoon or a lake or whatever, where there's nothing for him to stand on, but he manages to come up to about like chest level in the water. And whoever he's going to go fuck up, he points him out. So he comes out, he's like, points him down, and then proceeds to go back under the water and go to wherever they are and fuck them up. So I found that to be entertaining. Like, this guy's actually calling out his victims from like, I don't know, 50 yards away, and then going over and proceeding to destroy them in the process.
From what you've told me about this movie, it does sound like it's right up my alley and something that I should probably watch pretty soon.
If you're okay with a guy running around in a rubber suit for an hour and a half, I don't see why you wouldn't be entertained.
Those are kind of my favorite kind of movies, so it fits the brand.
They have their place, for sure. Yeah, it absolutely fits our branding. There's no doubt about that. Then past that, we just rolled right into the weekly topic, which is kind of what we do around here because we have topics. So where do we want to even start on this? Is this the crown jewel of Crummy Movie March, or is this just the end of, how do we want to describe what this is for Crummy Movie March?
I mean, it's definitely the finale of 2023's Crummy Movie March.
It is a finale. I'll give you that. This movie is called Hard Ticket to Hawaii. It is a 1987 R-rated action comedy, I guess. Yeah, they're calling it an action comedy movie, which is, the synopsis is, in Hawaii, an undercover DEA agent and her civilian friends stumble upon a drug trafficking operation and have to enlist the help of all their colleagues / friends to go after vicious drug people.
So the storyline,
I don't even know if that's accurate or not after watching this.
Well, I think let me read the storyline and then I'll kind of give my real quick piece on me. Yeah. So the storyline is, according to IMDb and Ed Sutton, you can find him at Ed Sutton at mindspring.com, because I'm sure that's probably still around. 2 drug enforcement agents are killed.
What is Mindspring?
I want to say it was like an Earthlink kind of thing, but maybe it was just an ISP. Anyways, 2 drug enforcement agents are killed on a private Hawaiian island. Donna and Taryn, 2 operatives for the agency, accidentally intercept a delivery of diamonds intended for drug lord Seth Romero, who takes exception and tries to get them back. Soon, other agency operatives get involved and a full-scale fight to the finish ensues, complicated here and there by an escaped snake made deadly by toxic waste. This movie is all over the fucking place. Like, I don't even know how you could determine all this stuff. I mean, all this stuff happens, but it doesn't happen in sequence. Like, it's like an avalanche of all these things.
So, honest question. I have not seen any other films by Andy Sidaris, even though the posters of his films are kind of littered all over the movie. Yeah. In different rooms, which I found that to be really funny. I was like, are these posters? I actually paused it to look it up. I'm like, these gotta be this other movies this director has done. But this movie plays, and you have to be a certain age to know what I'm talking about. And I know you and I are, so I can say this. This movie plays like an action movie that was on Skinamax at like 2 a.m. on Saturday night. This movie to me, and I took the note and wrote this note pretty much word for word. This feels like a movie that you would have seen on USA Up All Night. Like a Rhonda Shearer, too many breasts for that. That's why I said Skinamax.
Yeah, okay, I could see that, but it has that kind of feel like a Gilbert Gottfried introduced movie on USA Up All Night, except they might like cut it so that it's framed so you can't see the boobs, which I don't even know how you do that. But this movie is full of boobs. This is the type of movie that you would watch before you had the internet so that you could see boobs, right? Before people had the internet, you would watch these kind of movies because there's boobs littered all over this movie. This movie is rotten with boobs.
It's like they had a standing order. You hear this about about horror movies. Like you have to have a kill every 5 minutes. Otherwise it doesn't work. You have to have a nipple in this movie every 4.5 minutes. Otherwise we failed as a film.
And the other thing about this movie is it feels like it is like there's an unspoken backstory with the characters. When the movie starts, the characters, what are their names? Taryn.
Don't they get into a hot tub like within 2 seconds of the movie starting or something like that?
Well, Donna and Taryn are the two main characters, or the two main female characters, and it just feels like there was a movie that happened before this movie. But
it might be one of the posters that's in there.
I think of Andy Sidaris' movies, these TNA kind of movies that he's done. This was the second, and the one that came before didn't have these two people in it. But Dona Speir was in, I think, 7 of his movies, and she plays Donna Hamilton, I think, in this one and subsequent movies. So there are like this series of movies that have some of these same characters that are in it. But this is the first one, I think, that has both of them. And like I said, it just feels like there's a backstory, like all these characters. We read it in the story and in the storyline and the plot or the synopsis, whatever you read. You know, they say they enlist all these friends, but the way they introduce the friends, it's as if you're already supposed to know who these people are.
Yeah, it almost feels like, do you remember Red Shoe Diaries? That show that was on around the same time?
Yeah, that was on Cinemax.
Yeah, it wasn't really about anything. It was just like random people showing up and acting like they knew each other, and then they would bone and maybe get into some kind of like mystery or something like that.
I have to admit that I never watched Red Shoe Diaries for the story.
Well, I'm not saying I did either.
So I didn't know that there was a story. I just thought it was like a softcore porn thing for boobs, basically.
That's pretty much what this is, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's got action. Like there's just over the top ridiculous action. And I've watched this movie before, and I watched it a few years ago, and that's kind of why it was curated for this Crummy Movie March list. I remember it being a little bit better the first time around than watching it the second time. And the entire time I was watching this, I was thinking to myself, man, I really wonder what John thinks of this movie, because it feels like the first 45 minutes or so are really disconnected. But then you start getting, and this movie is like an hour and 35 minutes, but it plays as if it's almost 2 hours. It feels very long to me. But that's when you start to get to the ridiculous things with the skateboarder guy. Long. Yeah. And you start to get with the skateboarder guy doing the handstand and the blow-up doll.
We're going to come back to him in a second.
Skater.
To answer your question of what my thought was with this, in a month where you've had me watch Never Too Young to Die with Gene Simmons playing a hermaphroditic Mad Max gang leader.
Yep.
Black Devil Doll from Hell, which that pretty much is its own synopsis. And The Perfect Weapon, which almost looks like an Oscar nominee in comparison to some of these movies.
Yeah.
Looking back on it. This somehow is dramatically more ridiculous than all three of those. Certainly more than The Perfect Weapon. But those first two especially, this is somehow more ridiculous. I don't want to go as far to say Black Devil Doll had a story, really, because I think that's kind of stretching the concept of story. But I feel like there's this, if we're going to say this movie has a plot, it's far harder to follow than what the ridiculousness of the movie Never Too Young to Die, which we started this movie with, which that movie's full of camp and cheese and everything else. This movie is just like,
it's bonkers. It's batshit.
It's like a kid. It's a kid who needs Ritalin and won't take it.
Yeah, there are just so many story elements. If we just look at the storyline, I think they sum it up actually pretty good. Like they keep a good track. So we have drug enforcement agents. Okay, that's number one. On a private Hawaiian island, they intercept a delivery of diamonds that are...
The delivery of diamonds is like...
It's like a shitty RC helicopter with like a bag in.
Yeah, and it's a bag that's like... It's like a dime bag, literally, of diamonds.
And they're afraid it's going to like hit them.
Yeah.
All right, so we have all that. We have drug lord, and then we have the toxic waste, like radioactive snake, which is played basically by a sock puppet and somebody with a really long arm. I mean,
but it has the best sound effects. And I need to stop you there because I actually wrote down twice in my notes. The snake is my favorite character in this entire movie. I love when the snake randomly kills like some chick who's just getting naked for the sake of getting naked on the side of the beach at a photographer. And this is in the time of Polaroid pictures. That's how you made porn back in the 80s, is with Polaroids. They go to, so after this guy gets murdered and these two like half-dressed women go and find the bodies, they find this camera and they pull the last picture out. And this snake is just perfectly framed up like, hey ladies, as he's about to murder some dude with a Polaroid camera.
Do you think the snake has like the Steven Seagal voice?
Hey ladies,
Hey,
I'm here to eat your models, man.
I have to say, even though as ridiculous as this movie is, and over the top and batshit and just like crazy, ridiculous, whatever, it is one of the best shot of these kind of movies. Andy Sidaris does a hell of a job making this look like a super high-end production. I mean, it looks legit. It does not look... come on. I think he's using the Vaseline on the camera to soften up the picture and everything. I mean, this guy's taking out all the stops.
He clearly has no concept of how much damage a bazooka does when it's fired at close range.
Oh, yeah.
Or for that matter, how much damage a bazooka does when it's fired at long. I mean, there's scenes in this movie where you watch people hold someone, like, instead of at gunpoint, they're literally being held at bazooka point by like someone who's maybe 5 feet away, where it's like, go ahead and shoot him. You're going to kill yourself in the process.
Nuh-uh.
Right. But he doesn't. Well, he does shoot him, but he doesn't kill himself in the process. It's a very clearly that was not the good rocket or whatever. But then no more than 10 seconds later, same bazooka, different rocket. It's like World War II over Hawaii when he blows up this helicopter out of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, this is, so we should mention main actor, main character, I guess. The main male character in this movie is played by Ronn Moss. He plays the character Rowdy Abilene. Ronn Moss's claim to fame, I think, is he was on a like General Hospital or something. I think he was like the bassist / backup vocal person, I guess, for the band Player, who had a hit on Yacht Rock Radio with Baby Come Back.
The title track for this movie?
No, and that's the thing. That's another thing. This movie, I feel like almost all of these movies so far, right? What was the first one? Stargrove. Stargrove. He had his own theme song. They had their own theme song for Stargrove. Black Devil Doll from Hell had that like banging fucking heavy metal track.
Keyboard shit.
Yeah, the Casio stuff. But I'm talking about the intro music. Last week was The Perfect Weapon. They had I Got the Power from Snap. This week we have the actual theme song. All these movies have had their like iconic theme songs. This one was actually called Hard Ticket to Hawaii. Legit. That's how you know a good movie. The sign of a good movie has its own theme song.
We really need to talk more on these plot keywords words in this movie, because this one's got some other good ones too.
Run them down.
I'm going to handpick them here. Female rear nudity. Let's see. Snake.
Check.
Organized crime.
Check.
Blow up doll.
Check.
Montage.
Check.
MMA.
MMA. Oh, because
So
that guy's a martial artist.
Yeah. 1980s.
Check.
Let's see.
It's like
Erotica.
quadruple check. Yeah, man.
State name in title.
Yes.
Frisbee with razor blade.
I was just playing that out back before I came in to record.
What we do.
The dog was catching it.
Kissing while having sex.
Well, I mean, come on. Goes without saying.
We'll do a couple more here. I don't want to read all 250 of them. Marijuana farm. I don't remember that being
That's
in
at
there,
the
but
beginning.
sure.
So when the two troopers they're like island cops, basically. There's an older guy and a younger guy, and the older guy's basically telling the younger guy, he's like, I'm going to retire in a week. I think he was actually played by Danny Glover, and he told the younger guy, played by Mel Gibson in this movie, that he would be taking over, checking in like, hey man, just let you know, Bretta, that these guys, they sell the weed, and sometimes, I let them slip by with a small fine, and they give me a brick that I pass the goodies out. So that
I just give them a fine and they hook me up, man.
Yeah, brother.
Then I talk about how I got shot with a harpoon and have some severed fingers. All right, I'm out of plot words. Oh, sadism. I thought that said sadgasm. It says sadism.
Sadgasm.
Anyway,
What are some of your favorite scenes in this movie?
so without a doubt, skateboarding guy with the blow up doll, and does he have like a sword or something? Yeah, he
no,
has
it's a shotgun.
Is it a shot? Yeah, okay.
He's
The
got a
sword's
gun.
later.
And he skates
Yeah.
by and shoots the guy, and he somehow just has this little shrapnel like burn over his heart.
Right. And then he returns fire with a fucking bazooka.
Well, he like hits
While
him with
driving.
the car. He hits him. The one guy's driving. He hits him with the Jeep. The guy flies so high up in the air that the bazooka can hit both the guy and he explodes. This
And
was
the
like-
blow up doll.
and the blow up doll. This became like a kind of a viral video that kind of remember. Did you ever watch Attack of the Show on G4 with,
Well, yeah.
or was it Martin? That Martin guy?
I have a.
What was Martin? Whatever.
I
Martin
think it was
Sargent.
Tech this shit. Yeah. Anyway.
One of those guys. Anyways, they that was a clip that went like crazy on their show, and it was the blow up doll and the skater. Oh, skater and the big fat Hawaiian guy. What did you
Yeah.
think of?
I like the costuming in this movie. Like from top start, to everyone in this movie is costumed perfectly. Because if you're a fat guy, you're just wearing loud Hawaiian prints and like wear those zebas, those fucking
Zubas?
loud as fuck zubas. If you're not a fat guy, you're either shirtless or wearing such a deep V that you might as well be shirtless. If you're a woman, bras are flat out outlawed on this island. Like, no. If you do have a shirt on, it's not going to be on for very long. And if you do have pants on, it's like they might as well just be like a G-string because that's really all they're covering in this. So the costuming in this is, again, just oozing like Cinemax flair. I also thought that this movie was kind of sad and kind of funny because every single woman in this movie is perfectly okay with just being a thing. Like there's no independent thinking, like strong, like minded woman. And every guy is a fucking creep in this movie, like from start to finish. That it's just like, hey, you got some boobs, huh? Come on over here. I'll give you a job.
While I do agree with you on a lot of that, I think that that Dona Speir, who plays Donna Hamilton, I believe, and Taryn, Hope Marie Carlton, who plays Taryn, they are both pretty badass. I mean, they
but
they
they're
take care of
also
business.
pretty. Yeah, well, they also do it while being like, oh, I just need to go home and get in the hot tub because I think better there. That's a good idea. And then they're, pulling out their dime bag of diamonds and like, oh, I lost one in the hot tub. Or take a dip.
Oh,
that kind of
let me
crap.
bend over and pick that up for you.
Yeah. So you're right, but you're also, I mean, they're playing into it while they're defying it, I guess. Defiling it. Yeah, that's probably more accurate.
The one character I got really tired of was the sports guy. And I found that was actually really offensive where they're interviewing the two guys, the two football players for the thing, and they're black and they're talking about the thing.
God.
And they try to screw him up, and Andy Sidaris makes his like appearance in the movie as being the director of the sports show. It's like an ESPN kind of thing. But the sportscaster played by Wolf Larson, and they list him in the credits as J.J. Jackson, but I think his name is like it's like a hillbilly stereotype name. It's like Johnny Jonah, Jackson, Jimmy John Jackson,
It's
or
the kind
something
of thing
like that.
you notice when they say it.
And they make this comment. I can't even repeat it. Like if we repeat it on the show,
Yeah.
we
That's the
might
end
have
of
to
the
call
show.
it the end of the show. Yeah, this would be the finale of Crummy Movie March and the Dewey Pod Monster if we actually repeated what they said on the thing, and they're just laughing about it. And those guys that they have like say the lines look like they're at least like 30-year-old guys that are supposed to be college students.
Yeah. Yeah, that I kind of forgot about that scene, but that scene's cringe in a whole different way.
But that J.J. Jackson character, just in general, is like one of the worst parts of this movie. And he just shows up in the middle of the movie hitting on one of the people at the resort. And he's just there. He's there for the rest of the movie. Like he hooks up with one of them and then he becomes one of the friends.
Let's see. You mentioned other things I thought were funny. So I did mention there's a scene where a sword gets thrown and then someone gets shot.
Blasted.
I don't care so much about them getting shot. I think it's funny that this guy pulls out like a giant samurai sword and instead of using it like a sword, he decides to like hurl it at two people.
Like a javelin.
But this has one of my much loved ragdoll gets thrown out of building, like very unceremoniously scenes where you take, I'm assuming Miami has high rises, but like it's coming off like an 8th floor or higher type apartment building and just gets heave-hoed right over the railing. And there is no real attempt to like hide that this is the dummiest of dummies.
Yeah, it's like stiff, like the arms are just locked in position.
I also thought it was funny when so I don't remember exactly how or why, like, the entire cast ends up in the back of this van at one point. And then all of a sudden, one dude's just riding a dirt bike off a ramp that appears and I was like, where the fuck did the dirt bike come from? There were like 8 people stuffed in the back of this van. I didn't see a dirt bike in there, or at least I don't think I did.
Well, that was when Rowdy had to go save because I think they forgot something. There was one guy that he was unaccounted for. The main bad guy, the guy, Seth Romero was the character. He ends up accosting like one of the women, I believe Donna, in her home. And that's when the snake comes into play, and that's when we get the big snake finale.
I was going to say, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the gigantic radioactive toilet snake at the end of the movie. Spoilers, if you can find this movie to watch it. I'm not even sure where we watched it. The snake turns into like the snake from Anaconda, but bigger and cheesier. And it's so telegraphed. Like, you kind of forget about the snake until they shove it in your face. They're like, hey, there's a snake running around for some reason. And every time you do, you hear the snake go, which I don't think snakes really make shitty noises like that. But one of the girls goes into the bathroom, and the snake just straight up 90-degree, like, pillar to the sun emerges from the toilet. Isn't even really attacking. It's just protruding upward. And they blow up the snake. I don't really remember how they blow it up. They probably throw dynamite at it.
That was from a rocket.
Was it from a rocket? Okay.
Yeah, and it hits its teeth or something.
So they blow up the snake, and you get one of the easily the best one-liner of this movie, where our hero goes, "Just when you thought it was safe to take a pee." What am I missing? I'm sure I'm missing something. There's so much shit that happens in this movie.
There's a lot of things that happen that are kind of ridiculous and silly, but there's a lot that just kind of happens that's service to show more boobs.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So there's like probably 50% of the movie.
Yeah, it's like the quest to show more boobs. How many pairs of boobs can we fit in this movie? There's the guy that works, he's working in the restaurant in the resort the whole time, and nobody realizes that he's a double agent, but he's actually a man dressed up as a woman in woman's clothes until his horseshoe pinky ring gives him away, which, okay, sure, I guess that's a thing. He ends up being a double agent for the bad guy, for Seth.
His scene where he's in drag and they're talking about, like,
oh, you need to work out to keep those,
or something.
Yeah, you need to work out to keep those I don't know, puppies firm, or whatever the lady says. Like, I don't think that's how that
whatever
works.
It was.
I mean, I'm a guy, and I don't think that's how that works.
I don't think that's how it works either. But they go on like a short conversation like that, and it's totally like bizarre. And that's when, like, we're revealed that he's in drag, because all of a sudden he's just removing pieces of
he's like pulling his wig off, and the whole thing.
And I was watching, I'm like, where's this going? Like, what's the point of this? Why is this something that I need here right now? So I guess I didn't even piece all that together. And that's kind of to say that's one of the downfalls of this movie is almost kind of goofy, because there's no shortage downfalls in this movie. But if you're going to look at it objectively, let's just say you want a movie with an hour and a half of, nipples all over the place. One problem with this movie is it's so ridiculous and so disjointed and so all over the place that you find yourself just not really caring a lot of times. Like, I hit a lot of points where I'm like, all right, Bazooka's back. All right, there's some boobs again. Moving on. So where is this going? And you mentioned this movie, although it's a short runtime, it does feel long. Like, by the time I got to the end of them, like, I did at least 4 watch checks during this one.
Yeah, there's just so much going on at one time, and from one story to the next, and you're not quite sure which storyline they're kind of following. There's just so much going on that it's hard to keep track of. I watch this sitting at my computer. That's generally where I watch a lot of these movies, and so I can type out notes and everything. And I just found myself like wandering off to like surf the internet or look something up. I mean, this is like a really good movie. If you could just cut it, if you again, before online porn, basically, this would be a movie that you would watch to kind of get that element. So you might sit and watch it, but I don't know. I feel like you could almost just montage this movie into the boobs and then the action scenes, because in between there's really nothing that happens. There's just like a lot of talking, and you're just kind of along for it. There's goofy. The humor's not very good. I mean, it's cheesy to the level of not being amusing a lot of the time.
Yeah. It's cheesy to the level of being very like 1980s cringe too, which
Yes.
we've all watched those movies where something that might have been cheesy and funny in 1987, now it's just like, that's gonna get you fired, that kind of humor.
Yeah, there are a few jokes. Like I said, the sportscaster thing with the interview with football players is kind of, I mean, that's like, yeah, if I don't feel comfortable explaining this to someone that I would want to watch, hey, recommend this to you because you should, yeah, and there's just so, I mean, it's the 80s, right? What do we say? 87 this was made.
Well, that's when it was released. So yeah, right around there.
Like you said, there are so many times when the women are not even treated like anything but boobs, like walking boob holders, basically.
Yeah. And that might even be generous with it, to be perfectly fair. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of a hard one to kind of go much past that. I mean, I feel like in the time that we've been talking about this, we've said a ton of things, but I don't know how cognitive it is. And that's kind of a running theme with this movie is there's a lot of stuff that happens, but is it a cognitive story? Probably not.
Yeah, it's really hard to follow. It is near impossible to make heads or tails out of what's going on in the story of this movie.
I don't know. I feel like if we keep going on it, we're going to just kind of start circling the drains. Do you want to get to hot dogs on this one?
Yeah, let's move on to hot dogs. I'm ready.
Why don't you go ahead and lead us off on this?
Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, I've watched this movie a few times over the years. I still really don't know what it's about. Is it about like diamonds? Is it about drugs? Is it about toxic snakes? I don't really know. But it is a fun movie. Andy Sidaris makes these movies. They'd be, like we said before, they'd be right at home at USA Up All Night. Could they be a little bit shorter? Yeah, I think that they're a little bit shorter. They could be a little bit more concise, maybe make a little bit more sense out of the whole thing. But if I was 14, if I didn't have the internet, these would probably be right up my alley. I think because of that, it's kind of, we're in a age now that's maybe a little bit more advanced than what this movie kind of lets you have. I think Hard Ticket to Hawaii is probably, I'd say it's probably 2.5 razor blade Frisbees out of 6 hot dogs for me. Going by the Crummy Movie March
that's
scale.
right. You're on Crummy Movie. Okay. I forgot you have a different scale.
I do.
For the month. This movie, this movie's barely a movie, but that's kind of been a running theme throughout the month. I'd go as far as to say this movie's probably a solid 4 hot dogs out of 10 exploding toilet snakes. It's almost simple to a fault, but ridiculous to the same fault. It's, when I say that, like, this movie is literally like, I've heard my dad say this a million times. I just want a bunch of boobs and a bunch of explosions. Well, this is the movie for you. I mean, that's really all this movie is. That's also a downside. Like, it is almost to the point, like you said, internet porn has ruined movies like this because it's like, I don't really need this to see a bunch of boobs. Should you watch this movie? Yeah, I don't know. As long as you can get past that sportscaster scene, you might find some enjoyment out of this one. But of the 4 movies that we've watched over Crummy Movie March, I'd probably put this out of the 4, probably third. Like if I were to rank 1 through 4, this would probably be my third place movie.
So just to mention, this movie is available on Tubi for free with ads. It's on Plex, the HD version. That's free. It's on Amazon, Vudu, and Alamo Drafthouse. I guess they have a channel. I didn't know that. Those are each available to rent.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. And Amazon, you can buy this for $2.99. And Amazon Alamo Drafthouse, purchasable for $9.99. So you kind of brought it up. I feel like I have to ask you, what's it been your opinion of Crummy Movie March?
Well, one, it's going to be an annual thing. Like, we have to do this again because it's too crummy not to repeat. It's fun, and we're actually getting really good feedback about it, so I like that. Of the 4 movies, if I had to slot them as far as which ones I found to be the most entertaining, Gene Simmons is number 1 by far. Like, it's not even close. Like, Ragnar is so ridiculous and so cheesy
Velvet Von Ragnar.
I will likely watch that movie again just based off how insane that movie is. And that movie, for all the things about it that we said that's nuts, it makes sense from a story standpoint in that it has a beginning, a middle, and end, and it's somewhat competently put together from a story standpoint. It's about as best I can say it.
And the thing I think that's crazy about that is that was the one that was like the most recent discovery.
Oh, yeah.
I've known about these other 3 that we've watched forever. I mean, they've been sitting on them, watched them, a couple times each. And that I think Perfect Weapon for me, I always think of that pole vault scene where he jumps over the fence with the other piece of fencing that he finds. But yeah, Never Too Young to Die was the first one. Like, that was the most recent movie that I'd seen. We talked about it just a couple months ago, and I was like,
right,
we got to watch this. This is this thing that's crazy. And
you had me sold based off all the Gene Simmons content.
Yeah.
So,
and going back, there are so many movies that I'm looking at in my collection, and in just like other things that I remember, like the covers. That's a lot of this comes from like the covers of VHS tapes that I remember seeing back in the video store.
We brought that up. Yeah, we brought that up several times, and that continues to be something like that's a big part of why I like Tubi, because they put all that old artwork on there, and I'm totally just like, well, that looks ridiculous. I'm gonna go ahead and watch that.
Yeah, and I think we need to start doing like watch casts or something with people, or I don't know, start a Patreon, and we do these commentary tracks or something, because there are just so many movies. We'll be doing this till like 2030. 2030 shit. We'll be doing this till like 2300. With all the, if we did one a week.
I don't know if we'll live that long, but let's see what happens. But I mean, we could do that. And I actually would think that'd be a good way for us to kind of bring in some guests. We've been kicking around the idea of some ways we could do a YouTube channel as well. So that's something that we would like to hear feedback about. Wrapping up with the rest of Crummy Movie March, just to throw out rankings, because that's what I'm going to do real quick. Perfect Weapon's probably the number 2, just because that's a competently made movie. It has some things where it falls a little short for me. And ultimately, it's not as fun as some of the other ones. This would be my 3rd place movie, like I said. And Black Devil Doll from Hell, I did not enjoy watching that movie. I don't enjoy talking about that movie. And,
anytime you hit yourself a little bit, you can watch that and feel a little bit better about yourself.
Yeah. That movie might be my Killer Clowns from Outer Space for you. So.
That's saying a lot. That is saying a lot.
Yeah. Well, we still got one more clown movie that we have to cover at some point, not too far off here. Yeah. I was actually talking to someone about that today. I was like, I don't know. I think I have a limit on how many clown movies I can force Sean to watch within a 12-month rolling period. So I don't know. You are more familiar with these than me. Do you have any closing thoughts on Crummy Movie March?
I don't really have closing thoughts. I didn't really even think to ask. I just kind of figured this was your kind of first foray into some of these movies, or first time watching some of them. This is like my wheelhouse. I love finding movies like this that are not, I mean, this one isn't super obscure. Like I said, it got kind of viral back, I don't know, a few years ago, but I just love watching movies like this. This is what really, as a kid, not this movie in particular, but movies like this are what kind of got me into this whole thing. Like, going to the video store with my sister, and she was 10 years older than me, and we would just go and pick the shittiest looking movies. We would watch all the Ninja Wars movies or any kind of movie that tickled our fancy at the time. I mean, we got it really big into like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies because of just seeing the covers and, oh, have you ever seen Lionheart? No, I've never seen Lionheart. Let's rent Lionheart, just stuff like that. Oh, his older stuff.
I did the same thing, but in the horror movie section. And I got lucky that the guy who owned the video store, because we went to a mom and pop place.
Yeah.
He was friends with my dad, and my dad was like, as long as he's not renting porn, I don't give a shit what he rents, which granted, some of those horror movies, there's a thin line between porn and horror movie, but it worked.
And I think it's so much easier now to watch these kind of movies, but a lot of these movies have been lost. They only existed on VHS. DVD was a big explosion. A lot of movies came out. A lot of movies got put on DVD that probably wouldn't have got distribution otherwise, but VHS was even cheaper. And I just like to kind of look back at some of these movies, because while they might not be good movies, you can tell, like, the people that made these movies loved making these movies. It was like a labor of love for a lot of these movies, and it's fun to go back and watch. And even a lot of movies from the 80s, and I don't want to get into a whole nother episode just talking about this, but I just feel like a lot of these movies from the 80s and early 90s, before digital distribution, there's something about them that even when they're garbage, they are still better than some of the stuff that any Tom, Dick, or Harry that picks up a DSLR or mirrorless camera can make, that you just had to put the effort in, because you couldn't do unlimited takes. It was like, I only have so much tape that I can take on. And now it's like, you can just do it over and over again. And sometimes they do it one time, and it just, there's something about those movies for me that just holds a place in my heart that even digital movies these days can't replace. But
for me, there's all that, but there's also something that's missed. And there's been documentaries made about this, and I use the word documentary kind of sparingly.
Loosely,
but,
yeah.
You know, going to the video store and taking time to actually, because, you know, at least for me, I had to either walk or ride a bike there at that point. And taking the time to actually kind of look through all these like turds and find the diamond turd out of the other turds that you're going to actually spend money on, and that you didn't have like the cost for entry now is so low for so much of this stuff, especially when you're getting
a lot of it's free.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Especially when you're getting into the Tubi crap or the Pluto crap or whatever.
Ice cream sandwich
you
crap.
know, yeah, you can start one of these, and if you're not into it, which let's be real, that's going to be a lot of these, within two to 20 minutes, you can just back out of it and start something else. And yeah, you know, you don't have to do that. When you would rent a video beforehand, you're just like, well, I paid for it. This is what I have. So this is what I'm watching now. Like it was more of an investment into it, for better or worse. It kind of made you appreciate that. Like, one, it made good movies better. Like, think of how good a movie, like, you know, we've used this one as an example hundreds of times, but look how good of a movie Scream looked like after watching this crap for 3 years straight, you know, or whatever. So it kind of let those good movies pay off a little bit more, where now it's like, if you compare it to like current stuff that's out, it's like, okay, well, if it doesn't have like a, you know, $1 billion box office and some Marvel characters, it doesn't get made. And it's just, it sucks. So I don't know. It's fun to go back and kind of see all these things and let yourself kind of get lost into this little crappy world. For most of these are only like an hour and a half. They typically don't run all that long. And I don't know. It's fun to take a month aside just to focus on that.
Hey, maybe we'll do Crummy Movie May. Who knows? Wouldn't count on it, but maybe.
We have been kicking around WrestleMania or whatever.
WrestleMania.
All wrestler movie month.
Yeah.
WrestleMania or July, whatever. We're talking about doing a theme month where it just involves movies that star wrestlers. So that should be another level of crap.
Yeah, definitely let us know if that's something you want to see.
Yeah, and for the record with that, we're not talking about like current movies with The Rock or current movies with, you know, John Cena. I think we both have a soft spot for those guys in movies, but we're talking about like the Hulk Hogan movies or the Roddy Piper movies, and not They Live, the other Roddy Piper movies.
We've been kicking around the Steve Austin surviving the game kind of thing.
Yeah,
the deadliest, not deadliest catch, but whatever that genre of movie's called.
We just found that Mexican horror movie with Rey Mysterio a week ago. So there's a lot of gold
things
to be circling the drain. Yeah. So yeah, if that's something that you're interested in. Yeah, exactly. So if you want us to plunge into that drain, please let us know. You can do that at any of the usual spots. As you know, we are you've been listening to this point. We are at Dewey Pod Monster and all those social networks. So we're pretty quick at responding to those. You can follow us on our website as well, which is at crap.town, and there are feedback options on there also. You can even leave us a voicemail and say, hey, you turds, stop watching these turds. Go watch
some other turd.
Ant-Man. So,
like Ant-Man.
Yeah, like Ant-Man. Also a turd. I like Paul Rudd, but he's still
a turd.
Anyway, I probably forgot something, but Sean's going to hopefully catch that if I did, and let you know where you can find our other ventures that involve booze and cool shit like that.
I don't think you missed anything, but you can find out more about the beer side of stuff that we talk about at youtube.drafttherapy.com. That's where I talk about Michigan beer. As I've mentioned several times in the past, we've been doing more of these interview type things. Hopefully more of those to come in the future. We're going to do a little crazy thing by the time that you see this or listen to it, I guess. We may have already done it. We're going to try out something a little bit nutty. So you got to check us out at youtube.drafttherapy.com to see what the hell I'm talking about. You can also find me, or I guess the Draft Therapy crap, on all the social media shit that you can look at, and you got to find that at Draft Therapy.
We might need to start that Patreon to post bail money.
Yeah,
so
maybe
probably do that. All right, I think that's all we got for this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for enjoying Crummy Movie March with us, and like I said, give us some feedback. And furthermore, going forward, if you have good movie, bad movie, if you just want us to talk about a title, again, we're open to any topic.
You know what?
Movie, music.
God damn it. This is the original podcast about consumption. If you have anything you want us to talk about, let us know.
Yeah, what he said. That's all we got. Talk to you later. Have a good week.
Bye.